Now, I hope everyone knows that it's good to move. You should move, right? And we're not going to be challenging the should, right? Because I think everybody understands that. But we're challenging the why, right? Because the why has changed, I think specifically over the last 5 to 10 years. But if we go right back, and when I say right back, like Homo sapien back, movement had a different function. It was to hunt, it was to gather, it was to battle, survive, escape, and it served a different purpose. But Homo sapien, he was up and about and started to invent some tools, some processes, some technologies, if you will, to make life easier. And he set us on this course of technology making life easier for us. Now, fast forward to 2020, technology is moving quicker than it ever has in human history. It's making things incredibly easy and creating a different lifestyle for us. And that's when we start thinking of now, how does movement fit into our lives? So if I can have a show, I can't see much here, and there's no judgment here, so I can't see your faces. So hands up who worked out this morning. Okay, that's good. Who intends to work out later? Okay. The thing that you've all got in common is that you're a thief, okay? Because there used to be, you had to find time to work out, but now you have to steal it. And been working with different athletes around the world at different levels. And when I say athlete, the way that Adi defines an athlete is anyone who wants to be better through sport. So all levels. If you want to improve yourself through any given activity, then we consider you an athlete. But now, if you want to work out, you've got to steal time. Right? You steal it from yourself, you steal it from your commitments, your responsibilities, or you steal it from your friends and family, your social circles. And that loosely translates into a morning, noon, or night, right? So if you're stealing from yourself, there's normally an alarm clock involved and some self-talk, right? If you're stealing it from your responsibilities, it's an hour in a shower, you could be doing emails, you're dodging a meeting, or not having lunch. And then in the evening, if you're stealing it from your social circles, I think that's obvious. You could be going to the pub for a couple of quick pints or catching up with family. But you have to steal it, and that is the perception that we all have. Yeah? Does that check out? The thieves this morning? Yeah. So when you think about that, why are we stealing? Because technology is saving us so much time, right? Who has a washing machine? Yeah. So just to put it in context, I had a mentor in Italy, and this is important reference there, and he said the most important invention in his lifetime was the washing machine because it gave his mum more time with the family. Now, that's pretty heavy and pretty emotional, as Italians generally are, but if we think about all of the technologies that have come after that and we're experiencing now, they're making life easier. Like, we don't have to go to the store anymore. Amazon has got us covered, right? We don't even have to go to the library or even, God forbid, a bookshelf because Google's got us covered, right? Siri even. We don't even have to go on a Friday night and dance for six songs to try and meet anybody because we can swipe for that shit now. So life has become a lot easier for us, right? And we've got these incredible savings. But these savings are not converting, right? And it's because technology is not just providing an easier life, it's giving us incredible options, right? Now, I've got for those that didn't get up this morning, I've got you here, okay? Because I don't believe there's any such thing as real laziness. It's just that there are more attractive and viable options in the mix, right? So is an elite athlete highly motivated, or do they just have an absence of options? I'm not going to lose, I'm not going to fail, I'm not going to lose my paycheck. So if we look at options are giving us the feeling and also the perception that we're lazy, but that's a myth, right? It's the options that are getting in the way. Like even now, if you're starting to get bored already and tuning out, you could start shopping, you could start listening to a podcast, you could start scrolling through social media, connecting with friends, right? We've got options at any point in time. And whenever you are looking at stealing some time to work out, there are plenty of attractive options there for you to consider. And they're easy, they're attractive, and they're often viable. But when we think about our selection of options, knowledge is never the deciding factor, right? And that might challenge you there, but knowledge is never the problem, right? Knowledge provides the should, right? but it's the emotion that provides the why, right? And to put in context, should you smoke? People still do because of the emotion. I don't think there'll be many people on the planet that don't know that thing leads directly to cancer, but it's not knowledge that gets in the way, it's the emotion, right? Should you eat 3 donuts a day? You maybe shouldn't, right? But people still do because of the emotion, right? So it's never knowledge, it's actually the emotion of things. So if we really start clicking into the emotions that that are driving our decisions, I think there's something to unpack here. Now we're going to be a little while on this slide, so settle in, okay? So with the emotions, there's not just the emotion of all of these options, because it is fun to scroll through some of the time to see what your mates are doing. Recently, it hasn't been good fun as an Australian overseas to scroll through and see what's been going on down here. And that creates some emotion, right? I'm active on Strava. Sometimes it's not good if you've been traveling a lot and scrolling through and seeing what your mates are doing. Sometimes it's not good to even read the news, right? But then sometimes it's good to chill out and watch 10 hours back-to-back of Netflix. But it's these emotions that are helping us make these decisions as to how we should be spending our time that are giving us the perception that we have to steal it. But one of the important mechanics of an emotion needs to be considered, right? Now, you might think I'm going off on a big tangent here. Stay with me. We'll come back, okay? So for some emotions to occur, there's a mechanism, and it starts with an expectation. There's an expectation that leads to a judgment, and a judgment that leads to an emotion, right? Now, I'll give you an example, a practical one. Who remembers dial-up internet? Okay, it's an older crowd than I thought. Okay, right. So dial-up internet, there was that funny sound at the beginning, and also back then, for those of you that weren't around for that era, we didn't have Spotify, so we had to steal music from the internet. And a song would take a good 8 to 10 minutes to download, right? Can you believe that? 8 to 10 minutes. And an album, forget it. You like go and have dinner, wait overnight, and hope there isn't a dropout, right? But now we have Wi-Fi, right? And our expectation has completely changed, right? So now, because we've got Wi-Fi, if you pull out your phone and stuff's not happening straight away, you start judging, this is not happening straight away. This is not good, right? And then that judgment leads to an emotion, generally frustration and anger, right? And I would say, at a guess, we've probably got more Wi-Fi related frustration and anger than we ever had with dial-up, right? Now, if you think about that, because technology, not only is it providing us these incredible savings, but then it overrides that because it's giving us these incredible options, but then it's making us frustrated and angry because it's resetting our expectations, right? And I think there's something in that, because in terms of the frustration that we're getting with the technology, I think we're losing perspective of how to use it and how to consume it. Now, in terms of how to consume it, have a think about this, and again, we're going back to the 90s and 80s, so just jump in the DeLorean here. Because if you take what we have with Netflix now, we can watch long series, we can binge on a whole series, right? And there is no limit to the consumption that we can hit on this, right? Back in the day, it was in half-hour blocks, maybe an hour, that were broken up by, some pretty good commercials at times. But that never seemed to bother us. But it actually it segmented our digestion of the content, right? Now, one of the things that is important here, and we're really going to use this metaphor of digestion, let's not think of an emotion just from the neck up. It gets a lot of press as something at the neck up, right? Think of this now as the neck down, because an emotion is not just something that you think is up here, it's a chemical reaction. It's a neurotransmitter, a peptide, and a hormone, right? And every emotion that we feel, there is some sort of chemistry there, right? So if we were watching a fairly intense show, and let's say a drama show, and there are all the feels in there, right? After 5 minutes, there's a commercial, we have a break, we go back into it, right? Might have been a little frustrating, but we're back in. But now we can sit there and get all the feels uninterrupted, and not just one episode, we can watch the whole series. So our consumption of these chemicals have gone up through the roof. If we take video games, I've got 3 kids, then love jumping on and playing Fortnite with them. But if I go back to our consumption of video games back in the day when it was an arcade, hanging off the end of a joystick, fighting pixels, limited by our consumption, by how many 20-cent pieces we had in our pocket. There was a limitation to how much we could digest, right? Now, the most popular games are free, right? And you're not fighting pixels anymore, you're fighting some stuff that it'd be hard for the brain to work out if this is real or not, right? And it's on a social scale. Your social currency, your standing with your mates, is limited, is associated with this game. So not only the ability to digest it, but there's all these different emotions that you're feeling uninterrupted, and that when you digest a lot of things, you feel bloated. Yeah. How many potato cakes I've had while I'm back? I'm really speaking for myself there, but if we think about this again as a chemistry, how much we're taking in, it's creating some feelings that we're probably just going to identify as stress, right? Now, stress, again, it gets a lot of press from here up, but stress is actually a chemical reaction, right? And again, a neurotransmitter, a peptide, and the hormone is cortisol, right? Cortisol in athletic terms, it's amazing. You know, it's a natural anti-inflammatory. It works well, but for people that aren't working out for 3 hours a day and getting their cortisol hits from season-long episodes of Netflix back-to-back, scrolling through Instagram. Here's one. The average scrolling distance on Instagram. Have a think about this, because if you scroll, like the photo's, 4 centimeters? Yeah? Oh, it's good to be back and just talking metric system again, I'll tell you what. 4 centimeters, and when you scroll, depending on your reach, you can get a good 20 centimeters. Some teenagers in a recent study that came out are scrolling close to 400 to 500 meters a day. Right? That's a lot of movement for this guy. Right? Anyway, tangent. Let me just get a mouthful of water while I digest that one. So as the 16-year-old girl scrolls 400 meters, she's experiencing a lot of different feelings, uninterrupted. Right? Going home, watching Netflix, uninterrupted. And the kids playing the video games are uninterrupted. We are also uninterrupted. Remember the days you had to go to a letterbox to get mail? And even remember you had to check email? And now that shit comes to you from all angles, right? What's the difference between a message coming through email, WhatsApp, or Messenger? They're all coming in the same way now. And we're getting push notifications, right? So the feelings that we're getting are becoming overloaded and we're becoming bloated with this. Now, back to when we're overwhelmed. When we're overwhelmed, even if we've had a lot of overwhelmingly positive feelings, it's still going to feel like stress, right? And if we know that the feeling of stress is actually a chemical reaction, that cortisol can become toxic. It affects our sleep, it affects our mood, it affects our ability to recover from a day. It affects our reaction time. It affects our cognitive ability in the short term, and it is associated with cognitive decline in the long term. It's toxic. But here's one that you just see if you're paying attention. The easiest way to eliminate cortisol from the body is what? Come on. It was in the title. Right. Is move. Now, this is not moving you had to go and do a 5-kilometer run, right? This is a rethink of what we think moving is. It's purposeful movement, intent on movement. It's all we have to do is raise a slight sweat with movement. And this is, again, the feeling that we've got to steal time. Some days you just can't steal time. But breaking it up into an extra block before you call your Uber, right? Walking past the first 6 Starbucks and going to the 7th, right? Looking for these small ways to move just to get that sweat, just that sweat on the brow to know that we're eliminating this stress. Now we know that we've been thinking about stress, it's good to have, work out, it removes the stress, but we've been thinking about it as here rather than what's happening in the body. We're thinking about it as a psychology rather than a physiology. And also, we've been prompted by moving in the past because we've been looking at the scales rather than looking at the consumption of the other toxins in our day. And I think that's one of the things that is the opportunity to challenge our established attitudes towards movement. It's not about the scales. It's not about the calories. Okay, it's about the chemistry of what is occurring due to our modern lives. It's the fact that there are plenty of options out there. Life is easier, but it's plugged with all these new things to do, right? But it is uninterrupted. We are not having our digestion of these emotions segmented. Back in the day, just a quick one coming in, you can have a conversation with someone. If you put your phone away and just have conversations with someone, you're probably going to be limited to maybe 10 really good conversations in a day, if you've got mates, right? But if you pull out your phone, that's quickly going to turn into maybe 50 to 60 conversations, and that conversation is a photo seeing what somebody's doing, right? Because there's a process there. That conversation might be a thumb-based conversation, but all of these conversations, they take a toll. There's a chemistry associated with it. So the idea of challenging our established attitudes to movement has to go beyond the scales and go into looking at other factors, because I've been saying before, you've got to find some time, you've got to steal some time. Back in the day, movement was considered a pastime, but now it's a must time, because technology is not going to slow down. It's going to continue to move quickly, right? And it's going to continue to make life easier. I don't think they're like user interface design, there's degrees now to try and make life easier for us. It's going to make life easier, and it's going to continue to create more options, and it's going to continue to allow us to digest emotional chemistry in ways that have been unprecedented in the history of man. So when we're talking about a mindset, it's not about whether we find it, we steal it. It's like we must. Because again, the world's not going to stop creating new ways for us to digest. And if we go beyond just what the scales are telling us to go what our bodies are telling us, I think there's a new why. Because you've walked into the room knowing you should, but now hopefully there's a more emotive why and how you could.